All right, I think we are live. So welcome everyone to a very special Saturday live stream here. I hope you guys are all doing well. Thanks so much for stopping by. So like all the other usual weekend live streams here, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering. Then anyone does a super chat or a super thanks. So as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames, they always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's a link in the description. And I see we got, looks like there's a little like flare on the lens there. I don't know. Hopefully that's better now. Anyway, but so I see we have Corvette and Liam and Vishal, Fazlin and Chad, Timothy and Lancewath and Luke. Thanks so much for stopping by. And let me see. So first comment here, Corvette says, well, Matt, my dad's list has gotten even longer. My dad's list has gotten even longer. He will be test driving from regular gas SUVs to hybrids to plug-in hybrids to EVs. And the following brands he's looking at are Toyota and Lexus, Cadillac, and even some BMWs to Audis and a Volvo, as well as a Nissan and a Genesis. I know it's a long list. Well, he's being very thorough, and I do respect that because, man, the amount of people who randomly like waltz in to a dealer and kick a tire and say, yep, that's good. And that's how they go about their decisions. That kind of blows my mind. So, I can totally agree with the overanalyzing kind of mentality for sure. And hope it goes well with all the car shopping, and it can be fun as long as you have decent dealers and all that. And Liam says, hey, Matt, hope all is well with you and the family. I hope you're doing well too. He says, I know you recently purchased the Fiat and the Caddy. Even though your next car is years away, what do you think your next purchase might be? Well, yeah, the next one coming up will be a replacement for the Lyric because that is only a 24-month lease, and we're already 6 or so months, 7 months maybe now into it. So, we only have another year and a half for that, and you can even, with leases, pull them forward a few months sometimes. So, 2027 is when we will be getting something new for Beth there. As far as what we're going to get, it's hard to say still. A lot of it is going to come down to just finances and what, I think it's going to be a bumpy year. So it'll be interesting to see. I hope that, the channel thrives and everything does well. And, the economy is great this year and stuff and all that. So it's really hard to say. It can range anywhere from maybe we buy out the Lyric if we still really like it and the price is right, to, if things are going well, I personally am really into the new Volvo EX60 that they just revealed. And if that goes on sale this summer, then by next summer, it'll hopefully be, not super fresh. Maybe there'll be some discounts. I can at least hack one like I did for the Lyric maybe and get one of those, really cheap. We'll have to just see, what other incentives are out there, what is available. I think as far as Beth's car goes, the one thing that is guaranteed is it's going to be electric. She loves it and she never wants to go back. And I don't blame her. I don't want to go back either, honestly, especially for a family car. Like it's so much better for our use case, at least. And with battery tech getting even better and stuff, I don't see that. Even if we start doing more road trips or things like that, I still think we're pretty solidly in the electric camp. So whatever it is, it'll be electric that'll replace the Cadillac. As far as the Fiat, that one, the lease isn't up until, the middle of 2028, like summer of 2028 for that. So there's a good long ways to go there. And man, I have no clue what the world's going to be like by that point in time. Assuming everything is miraculously calm and peaceful, I think, the thing that I want the most, I would love to get a GR Corolla. That's like the number one thing for me, and they'll be nice and cheap because I would probably want a pre 2025. They should be nice and cheap by that point. I also really love the Fiat though, and especially if my life is the same where I still have press cars most weeks and I just need a backup car. That little Fiat, the lease buyout, because it's already in the contract, of what it's going to be, it's like 16 grand and change, and that thing's going to maybe have definitely way less than 10,000 miles on it by the time that lease is up, probably. Again, unless my driving habits change and I'm not having press cars or something. So 16 grand for a fun little car that I love that is basically no miles on it still. That maybe the smartest way to go about it, just because there will be equity in it. If nothing else, I'll buy it out and flip it. I mean, I don't know how they're gonna fare as far as resale value. Maybe 16 grand will be high at that point, but I have a feeling, for one with that low miles, I might have a little bit of equity there. Who knows? But even just that's a strong possibility. Just keeping that one too. If the money allows, GR Corolla would be fun. I also love Ioniq 5N. So if those are dirt cheap, that also could be another way I could go. It'd also be a little easier to live with more space. And again, the EV thing that I love, and just I mean, as much as I love GR Corolla, Ioniq 5N is like double the power and still has a lot of the same fun. You just obviously miss out on the true manual transmission, but that would be another one. So for me, it'd probably be between Ioniq 5N and GR Corolla if I were to not keep the Fiat. We'll have to see how else things play out, and what other cars are out there and stuff. But that's probably the way I would lean right now. Yeah. And you'll see what other new cars come out and all kinds of other stuff that may throw a wrench in those plans. But yeah, fun question. Thanks for asking, Liam, and thanks for stopping by. Vishal says, what's up, Matt? I've got the most obscure spots for you: a BYD Song Pro SUV and a Peugeot SUV. Couldn't see the model of the Peugeot, but it was a subcompact SUV. Both had tags from Mexico on them. That's awesome. That's cool. You're starting to see the BYDs, and we're going to see a lot more of that. Especially I'll see a lot more of BYD once they start selling in Canada, because we're only 4-ish hours away from Toronto here. And a lot of Canadians actually come down to the Pittsburgh area to do a lot of their shopping, because we have probably one of the closest and most impressive shopping areas, within, if you're going out of Toronto, and you still want really good prices and all that. Pittsburgh's kind of the place to go. And that's why we see a ton of Ontario plates, around here. And especially there's a place called Grove City. It's like about 45 minutes north of here. So for that, it's like maybe a little over 3 hours for, those people close to Toronto. And, so I see a lot of that. So I'm hoping to see some Chinese cars here sooner rather than later, which will be fun. The Peugeot is a fun one too. I didn't know Peugeot sold in Mexico. Actually, I don't think I was aware of that. I know there's other brands like, there's more Fiats and some other stuff, but that's awesome. Fun that you're seeing some stuff you don't usually see. And Faslin says, hey, Matt, I hope you're having a good day. Unfortunately, I didn't pass the driver's test because I messed up one thing. I questioned if I was good with cars, but then just went to practice. Yeah, it's all good. You just keep on practicing, and I'm sure you'll get them next time. And sorry you didn't pass the first time though. But you'll get it. I'm sure you'll get it, especially if you are this interested in it and you're this focused. You'll definitely get it. Let me see. I see. Chad's agreeing with that too. And Timothy says, do you miss the manual transmission in the Mark 8 Golf GTI and R? Yeah, I mean, it's not the best manual, but to me, I'll take a subpar manual over even a pretty good automatic. I still don't love everything about the DSG and the Volkswagens, but especially here for 2025, it's pretty acceptable. That if you really love those cars, I would still go for one. It wouldn't be a deal breaker because the rest of the car is so great. But yeah, I do miss them. And, I think, when I've talked to more and more Mark 8 GTI and Golf R owners, it seems like you can live with the choices that Volkswagen made. They're not the best. It's not ideal. But if you really want the newest generation, platform, and you want it with a manual, just go for, one of the Mark 8s before Mark 8.5, and you have that option. But Mark 7.5, I think a lot of people really feel is the sweet spot, and I kind of agree. Actually, one of our neighbors has a 7.5 Golf R and loves it. And every time I'll get a Mark 8, I'm like, oh, what do you think? And I'm like, it's good, but I'm like, you're good with your Mark 7.5. There's don't feel any need to, go beyond that, because they're all the same. It's the same motor basically. I mean, there's little tweaks and obviously the infotainment and stuff, but like, it's, you're not looking for shaving 1/10 of a second off your lap time and stuff like that. You're there to have a fun small little hatchback, and 7.5 does that for a fraction of the price. Arguably possibly better build quality depending on who you ask. Still plenty fine infotainment and all that kind of stuff. You still have CarPlay, and you got the manual and all that. And I think they still look fantastic too. So I think, yeah, if you really want a manual, just go for one of the used manuals. If you must have a new vehicle, then I still think they're great on their own, even with the automatic. And it's not too bad. And Timothy also asks, have you ever wanted to review a car, but the automaker said no? And have you met Doug DeMuro? So yes, lots of cars that I would love to review, and car makers just not interested in really working with me too much. BMW is one of the ones where I wish there was more BMWs I was able to do. Occasionally, like once a year, I'll get like a BMW press car, but it's very rare. So I wish I could do more with them, because I do think they actually make some good cars, even though I gotta, squint every time I'm looking at them. I a lot of them are very good. They do have some misses. I think, like the X3, the new X3 interior is just like not even remotely luxurious. And there's some other stuff like that. But like, they make some pretty good stuff still. And the few that I have been in have actually thankfully been some of the best ones, where I didn't even have to be really critical because they were really good. The X7 I had last year was phenomenal. I drove that back from New York City. Such a wonderful cruiser for long, distances. And you had the X5M competition that was, phenomenal too. So, I've enjoyed some of them, but I'd love to do more with them. Also, I asked Bentley for cars. They said no. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I'm entitled to a Bentley for sure. So that was kind of, a shoot for the stars kind of thing. But after Aston Martin started sending me stuff, I'm like, well, I guess I'll try out the Bentley contact and see if that works, and did not work. But that's one of the ones I'd really like to work with more. And then there's the other, especially Ferrari. I'd love to work with Ferrari, but they are notoriously hard. Porsche is another one. I'd love to work with Porsche. They've said no. Porsche's PR team has been nice. They've been friendly about it, but they still end up saying no. And I mean, again, I don't blame them. You look at my view counts these days, and they have only so many, budget dollars to spread out to send cars to certain people. You want to send them to the people with the most reach, and I'm just not that, so I don't blame anyone whatsoever for that. But it'd be fun to get some of those more enthusiast brands for sure. As far as have I ever met Doug DeMuro, I have not, and I am very happy about that. He makes himself fairly sparse on others I've talked to where maybe he was on the same program or the same wave as someone for a media drive. But he kind of goes off and does his own thing, because he's very adamant on he doesn't stay at the hotel that everyone else stays at, because he pays for his own hotel. He pays for his own meals, so he goes off and does his own dinners. He doesn't hang around with everybody else, from what I've gathered. Again, I haven't been on a thing with him, so I don't know, but he's very much doing his own thing. And I mean, that's his prerogative. I'm an introvert too in a lot of ways, so I get it, but I love socializing. And like, to put it in contrast, like, the Throttle House guys, like, they're super chill. And I mean, they did, like, for example, on the Toyota Land Cruiser review drive and stuff, like they did go off and like do their own thing, but like they were there for the first night dinner and they hung out and I got to chat with them. And same thing, they were on the Dodge Charger EV program back at the end of 2024. And, they went off and did their own thing, but they also were with us, and, we were all getting to hang out and, chat over breakfast and dinner and, that kind of stuff. And so like, I think you can still go off and do that stuff and still be around. You can show up for the breakfast, and I think your integrity isn't compromised by taking a free breakfast from a car company, even though that's Doug's position. But anyway, if you aren't familiar, I'm not the biggest Doug fan, but I've never met him, so maybe he'd be different in person. But he's just said a lot of disparaging things against other reviewers that just doesn't sit well with me. But anyway, Chad says, what are your thoughts on the Rivian 2? I just saw a piece bragging it'll be cheaper to build, more refined, etc. I mean, it's definitely going to be a nice step up for Rivian for sure. There's some great improvements there. And it's yeah, it's their next generation, and it's badly needed because everything else is pretty stale, honestly, they have right now. So it's going to be great for them. And I'm excited for them. The one sticking point I have with Rivian is they're still so stubborn with no CarPlay, and for that reason, like actually Beth likes the R2, and likes Rivian's, but they won't do CarPlay, and that's a deal breaker for us. And so we won't even consider their R2 unless they change that stance in the next year and a half here. But RJ, their CEO, seems to be pretty adamant on, like, he's like, no, we don't need it. We can do something better. And it's like, okay, let me know when you can do better text messaging than iMessage and work with Apple that well. Like, it's impossible. So anyway, that and the key just sucks. I mean, if you watched my R1T review that I did last year, just that was the most stressful vehicle of the week for me, or of the year, as far as week-long press cars. It was impressive to drive, but every single time I went out to that damn thing, it just would not unlock. It wouldn't lock. So I'm standing around a parking lot like an idiot trying to get the stupid thing to lock. It wouldn't recognize the little fob. It wouldn't recognize the credit card thing. It wouldn't recognize my phone. So I got to the point where I had to open up my phone, open up the app, and then manually hit lock and unlock and treat my phone like it's the key fob, but it takes 3 swipes and unlocking my phone and all that stuff versus just a regular button on a key fob. And they're reinventing the wheel with some of this stuff. It's like, look, everyone's figured out CarPlay. Everyone knows that's just what people want. Everyone's figured out how to use a key. Like, just quit trying to be too extra, and just, if you can't beat them, join them. You clearly can't beat them. Just join them. But so those are my only 2 things. Otherwise, the Rivians are great. They're very impressive in all the other ways, it seems. And yeah, so I mean, despite those 2 things, I'm rooting for them. I'm hoping they do well, and I think they're going to only improve and only get better with their sales, considering Tesla has decided to kind of give up on cars, it seems. Basically, I mean, we have the 3 and the Y that'll continue on, but they're just going to die on the vine because just Elon doesn't have any interest in cars anymore. So, I think that, it's only going to be good news for Rivian, for Lucid, for all those. And let me see here. Vaslin, okay, talking about the practice there, and also Vancy and Lanswath, thank you both so much for gifting 5 memberships each. I really appreciate that, and happy to see some familiar faces there as well as some new ones. But thank you both so much for your generosity. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure that they do as well. And let me see here. Wow, yeah, I'm sorry I'm doing long answers here because we're already well behind here with the comments. So I apologize for the wait for everyone. But I hope you're doing well too, Lanswath. Lantern Tail says the spot of the week was a 69 Chevy El Camino, all original. Nice. That's impressive, especially all original. I love Survivor cars. To me, I know it's just a car and it's kind of silly, but like, everything being original is just the coolest to me, because it's whenever a car has had everything swapped and replaced, to me those pieces that were original are like kind of lost. And even though it's still the same like chassis underneath and it still represents the same thing, it's just not the same to me as like, that's the hood that saw all those miles, and those headlights were the ones that lit the way for 15, 30, 50 years, whatever. I don't know, just those types of things. Like, original just really does it for me. I don't know with classics, but yeah, if I ever have the money and the spare time and space to have a classic, I'd want something all original if I can find it. That's kind of hard the older you get with cars, but I'd love to find that someday. Great spot. And Chad says, if you're okay, yeah, talking more about the driving stuff, sorry. And Luke says, new installation in my bedroom has made it very comfortable. That's great. Well, glad you're getting everything sorted out there at home. And he says, also, I'm looking forward to seeing what the new Nissan Xterra is going to bring. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they play it. I mean, because there was this dealer discussion or whatever this week about it. I didn't read super close into it, but from what I gathered, it sounds like it's going to be kind of big, and that makes me a little worried because, people are saying like it's really like large looking. And I just hope that if it's anything more than a rebodied Frontier, I'm going to be nervous, because then it's going to be too expensive and it's going to be too complicated. I mean, they're already saying it's going to be hybridized. I'm a little worried that it's going to lose the charm. I think a Frontier with a cab on the back and maybe some roof rails and for other things, but like that's, I think, the sweet spot of what people actually probably want. If they go too big, they go too heavy, too complicated, it's going to be, $60,000, $70,000, and then no one's going to buy it. So I really hope that price, I know they said like, oh, we have to make it legit. We have to make it like a really impressive SUV. But if I guess it's supposed to be a 4Runner competitor, but if you're going to be doing everything 4Runner's doing with a hybridization, with like everything being super impressive and stuff, then it's going to be 70 grand like a loaded 4Runner is. And that's a problem. That's the first thing people complain about 4Runners. Oh, it's too expensive. And it is. I mean, a cloth bare bones 4Runner, I mean, they're capable, and that's why people buy them, in addition to, the resale and everything. But like, it's what, like 55 or something for like a bare bones 4Runner. It's a tough pill to swallow, even with the capability. So I just hope that they understand that they can't pull a 4Runner with it. As long as they understand that, I think they'll be fine. It'll be great. But I'm a little nervous with what I've been hearing so far. I was really hoping that they were going to say it's going to be a back to basics, simple thing, and instead I'm hearing the exact opposite of that. So we'll see how it goes. I'm still keep my fingers crossed. Nissan's been on a roll. They've had a lot of home runs in my mind. I think they're doing things the right way with all these new launches they've been doing. So I'm confident in the leadership, but yeah, I don't love what I'm hearing so far. Curious what you guys are thinking about it. But Lantern Tail says Toyota's probably not going to stop making fun cars, as they already have a partnership with Turn 10 to feature their own car as the cover car. Video games are a really good way for people to get to know about the brand. I agree. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, Forza Horizon 6 is going to have the GRGT. And there are other things that I think are still being worked on for sure. I don't know. I mean, this guy really seems like he's, I mean, I don't know the guy, and I haven't honestly like looked into him super deep, so I don't want to prejudge. But if if the highlights of that press conference were him saying he's very tight on money and tight with numbers and very it's a stark contrast from especially Akio and Toyota. And I mean, Koji Sato, I think, was really much an extension of him, and very similar kind of mindset. Coming from a motorsports background, having that be the number one thing for them. I mean, and those two, Akio and Koji are still going to be very much influential in the company. So I don't think they're going to let it go completely limp on their watch. But I am concerned. And the other thing I forgot to include in the video is that I'm worried that they're going to kill the EV stuff a little bit, or scale back like we saw with many other car companies. If profit is the number one focus, I hope that long-term profitability is also considered, not just short-term, because short-term, yeah, play it like Stellantis and make every gas guzzler you can until 2029. You can go that route, but then it leaves you ill-prepared for the 2030s whenever you need to actually be progressive again. And so I think that's I think it could backfire on them, is kind of what I think I'm getting at there. The performance stuff, I almost expect that to not last forever. Now, whether it ends, soon or not, I don't know. But that stuff wouldn't shock me as much. But I want Toyota to do well, and I think that if they can do well and have some good profits, and maybe we still can have a few fun things that stick around. But I think that in order to stay profitable, they also need to position themselves well for the future. Right now, they're nailing it with the hybrids, and I think they're obviously rolling out all these EVs now, so they are catching up there. But I hope that this guy doesn't say, oh, well, look, we're going to be losing money on the EV side, so let's just kill it and worry about that in the 2030s. And then, they end up in the same boat as Stellantis, because I don't want that for them. I think obviously they're in a much better position than Stellantis because, they've got all the hybrids and the plug-in hybrids, and they are developing, more like range extender plug-in hybrids is going to be the next step for, the prime kind of stuff that's just called plug-in hybrids now. So like, I think that they're not going to be quite as off the rails as Stellantis, even if they do kill the EVs. But I think, it's important that they still diversify like they have been doing, because I think that's been the golden ticket for them, is not putting all your eggs in the gas basket, not putting all your eggs in the hybrid plug-in. I mean, they got everything. I think offering everything is going to be very important, going into the 2030s as well. So I just hope that they understand what has worked. And even though, yes, we're kicking out Koji Sato, like I think what he was doing was working. What Akio was doing was working. They nailed it the past 5 and 6 years. And this is why they're still selling really well, even if, the profitability has taken a minor step back here. So, I hope that I think they're very good about having a zoomed out kind of approach on everything and not hyper fixating on, what's going on right now. So I have confidence they'll do the right thing, but I'm still just, it's hard to do the performance stuff. And I've kind of had to pinch myself with just how many fun things we've been getting from Toyota. But I don't know, maybe they will keep going with it. We'll see. But I think, the licensing stuff and the video game stuff is certainly helpful. But when you're talking about a Toyota too, I don't think they're that worried about it. I mean, obviously it's a great opportunity for stuff like the GR-GT that I think would fly under the radar for a lot of people otherwise. But, I don't think that's core to their business necessarily though. So as long as, everyone who's a car person knows about their heritage, knows about Supras and stuff like that. So I don't think there's really much need to prove themselves in that arena, really. But we'll see how it all shakes out. And Chad says, there was a line of 18-wheelers ahead of me that all went to the left lane on the interstate in a construction area. I was in the right and passing. One came over and almost hit me. Am I wrong? It depends on what your laws are as far as construction zones. Some places, they're only allowed to be in the right lane. Some they're only allowed to be in the left. Some they're not allowed to change lanes. Sometimes you are allowed to change lanes depending on where in the construction zone. So I'm not sure who would be in the right and who would be in the wrong there. Obviously, if they're changing lanes and almost hitting you, they're clearly in the wrong as far as that goes, regardless of what lanes they're in or supposed to be in. But glad you missed that one for sure. And Luke says, today was annoying. My kitchen ceiling leaked from wet snow melting. And when they redid the floor in the bathroom, the subfloor under the toilet was rotten. Oh, man, that sucks. Well, I can totally relate to the housing stuff because, we had a water leak here this week and our gas line's bad. So they're going to be replacing that here next week. And then, I had the flat tire earlier this week. So, I'm right there with you with the bad luck, but I hope everything gets sorted out here quickly and easily. And hopefully some of that stuff, your homeowner's insurance can kind of cover some of those home repairs too. But that's no fun. Home ownership. There's a lot of great things about it, but man, there's some stuff that's, the maintenance stuff can be a pain for sure. And Chad says, he avoided the accident without honking or anything, just to add circumstance. Well, good for you for keeping your cool. And I see everyone's cheersing to the GR Corolla mentioned there earlier. And hope everyone's got some yummy drinks here to enjoy. And Michelle says, saw the first 2026 RAV4 in the wild today. Definitely a nice looking car. Maybe a potential contender for me someday, as a hybrid makes too much sense for the amount of driving I do now. Nice. Well, that's good. I mean, they're great. I'm hoping to get one for a week here soon. They've been very slow with getting the press cars to my area. But I'm hoping to try one out here sometime early spring. But it's cool you're starting to see them out and about. I'm going to be keeping my eye out, but I haven't seen any around Pittsburgh here yet. We see Chad says, Miss Go Electric has some cool content for those leaning electric, not to take away from your amazing work, Matt. Interesting. I've never heard of her. I'll have to check have to check out her stuff. That's cool. Thanks for letting me know. Then Lantern Tail says, if Toyota does make that electric manual, you could lease that whenever it comes out and what financial situation you're in at the time. Yeah, that'd be fun for sure. And there was a new patent this week about them playing with battery placements to place stuff lower in a vehicle. And along with that patent, it was attached to another one that's further refining the electric manual. And my hunch, I don't know anything, but to me, the pieces are lining up that that's all for the new LFA. Or at least that's gonna be the one that debuts it. I'm sure it'll trickle down eventually. But the reason being is that, the one patent was talking about how do we get batteries lower? And if you look at, how that's based on the GRGT platform with the LFA, the new one, it's be a little tricky if you're going to have a super low sitting position. You can't put the battery really right under the floor, probably, if you don't want to raise the thing up and stuff. So I think that's what that is for. And then, if you're trying to have an electric vehicle that's exciting and you do pioneering stuff with it, I think that, that new LFA is going to be the first instance of that electric manual, would be my guess. I think that's what all that stuff is for. Could be for something else. We'll have to see. But I'm excited. Even if that's where it debuts, hopefully it does trickle down. But it'll be fun to see in the new LFA, which I'm really pumped for that. I know everyone else is not excited about it, pretty much. But if that thing's got an electric manual, it's fun to use. And it's super fast, and it looks the same way as that, concept does. I think, honestly, I like that better than the GRGT, honestly. But let me see. Hyper Shadow says, roses are red, violets are blue. Other things are other colors. I'm bad at poems. I'm glad to be here with you all for another Mateus Maranellius stream. Why is he calling him that name? We'll never know. But thanks so much for stopping by, Hyper Shadow. Hope you're doing well. And I guess next time we'll be doing a live stream. It'll be after Valentine's Day, so I can wish everyone an early happy Valentine's Day there, and hope it's a good one, whether you are with someone or not. Enjoy the state of life that you're in, and love yourself, if nothing else, for sure. But for anyone who missed it in the last live stream, I won't be doing one on Wednesday. I'm just not going to be able to do one here for Wednesday. So it'll be this one, and then back to Sunday and the usual stuff here next week. And Hyper Shadow also says, I'm genuinely curious, though, off the top of your head, doesn't even have to be based on logic or anything. What's the most fun car/vehicle in general you've ever driven and or might love to own? I mean, Jag F-Type R is definitely up there as one of the top ones for sure. So I won't go super deep there. Appreciate you kind of giving that context, because you know me too well that's where I would go. But F-Type R is the first thing that leaps into my head, pretty much. That's definitely as far as things I have driven. Another one that's definitely a highlight is the Ferrari 296 GTB, which I didn't do a review of, but it was a whole weird thing where I just went to Maranello, did their driving school there, Piloto Corsa, and got to tour the Ferrari factory and all that kind of stuff, but wasn't able to film anything aside from doing an Instagram reel. And so that's why I actually still have that Instagram. I think I have that Instagram story pinned on my Instagram. But that's the only footage that ever came out of there, unfortunately, because Ferrari is just really hard to work with on that kind of stuff. So I wish I could have shared more, because man, I had a blast in that 296 GTB. So that's definitely one of the more special, especially driving it at Fiorano. I drove it on Pista di Fiorano. I mean, the legendary test track of Ferrari in a 296 GTB with a Ferrari instructor alongside me, encouraging me and helping me to get the most out of the car and stuff. It just, that's one of those, like, you look back on for the rest of your life. Like that was a highlight of all time, in my opinion. So that's definitely, but I mean, as far as regular stuff, F-Type R, definitely one of the favorites that leaps to mind. The Aston Martin Vantage that I had last year is another one that's one of the most fun ones I've ever driven. Also, stuff like GT350, phenomenal with that high red line. I've been so fortunate. I think the reason why it's so hard for me to pick just one or just a few, is that I've had so many incredible experiences. I'm very, very fortunate that I can say that, but it's just, there's so much fun stuff. I can be like, wow, yeah, it was really fun to, you know, drive around in the brand new C8 Corvette with Shmi 150. He was my drive partner for a day. And like, that made that super fun and super cool to, go drive around with him. And that, and the Z06, which I just had as a press car at home. I didn't go on the launch of that, but Z06, another one, probably one of the most fun cars I've ever driven to, and just so special and amazing with that exhaust note and everything, that engine. Yeah, just so many of those kinds of like, pinch myself moments. Shelby GT350 or GT500, that was another one, phenomenal tracking that I was able to do in that, really tear that thing up and then go into the canyons and have a blast with it there. Yeah, there's so many really fun highlights, some really, really awesome cars. I'm very thankful to have driven. So hopefully I had a little bit of insight there without going too deep. But Joey, thanks so much for stopping by. And let me see. Chad says your review of the Charger and saying that it's the cruiser you actually want made me think that Ford is sleeping on the Thunderbird. Fast and straight line, comfy cruiser, electric or hybrid. I agree. I think that a new Thunderbird would actually do pretty well these days. There's so much potential that Ford's just not executing on, and I don't know why, but it's a shame, but I totally agree. And Lantern Tail says, I've seen some standard Model Ys on the road. I guess some people are willing to live with the compromises, even though it's far from a good value at this point. They did launch an all-wheel drive version, but it only does 294 miles, which is not great. Yeah, it's not, I mean, it used to be a better value, but you're right, it's not great anymore. I mean, I was just looking, because I currently right now have the 2026 Toyota BZ as a press car this week. And I was doing some research on that, and like, it's basically the same starting price. Now the Model Y does do more range even in its standard configuration, but yeah, just like everyone's caught up so much, and there's so many things that give you more car for your money. I mean, Equinox EV, over 300 miles of range, and I mean, you're getting huge discounts on those. I mean, some people are getting them as low as like 20 grand. Others, it's more like mid to high 20s, which is still a really good deal for anything like that. Yeah, it's just obviously, and all the other crap with Tesla doesn't help, but and there's no discounts really. There's no negotiating, because it's the whole direct to consumer kind of thing, which is actually, I think, putting them at a disadvantage now. Obviously, it was a big advantage for a long time, but now when you're in a point where you can't justify a sticker and people are kind of looking for a discount because they're not hot and stuff, now I think it's actually kind of probably hurting them a little bit. And I don't know, maybe if you go to a Tesla store, you can still like negotiate. I'm not sure how that works. But yeah, I think that's something that would honestly benefit them now, to be like, let's start throwing incentives on this and stuff instead of just always playing around with the price tag. But let me see. Decepticon, thanks for stopping by too. And Joey says, just curious what disparaging things has Doug said about other reviewers? Not to stir anything. I'm just curious if you could point to an example. Yeah, so I mean, like, if you watch a few of his videos where he went back and I can't remember which, there was one that was really, it was a few years back, and at this point now probably, but the one where he was like, how do car reviews work, or it's one of the ones where he's kind of like, taking you for a peek behind the curtain about like what press trips are like. And I think one of them might've been like why I don't do press trips or why I don't do press cars, which he does both. For a while there, he was like, oh, I'm only doing dealer stuff. And that also made him independent, which he's got a very fluid, I guess we can call it, definition of what's okay and what's not okay. I mean, it's okay to change your mind and evolve, but to be like, oh, anyone who, I mean, the biggest thing, that really I didn't appreciate was whenever he said like, yeah, anyone who doesn't pay for all of their expenses on these trips, you can't trust them because they are biased because they're getting stuff for free. And it's just, it's easy for him to say that, and for him to, if you're in the position he is in, where you're a multimillionaire and you've got money to burn and your channel's doing great, yeah, you can pay for all that stuff. He could stay at the 5-star hotels and pay for it himself easily, even if he wanted to actually be social and enjoying. But like, he's just said you can't trust any of the other people because they take a free flight, they take a free steak or whatever. And one, I mean, he's also kind of knocking a lot of his own friends who do that stuff as well, which is kind of weird. So many people still are cool with him despite him saying those types of things. But like, it's just flat out manipulative in a way, because if you're on the outside, you think, wow, yeah, Matt's going on a free vacation. He's getting, steak dinners sometimes. He's getting, staying in nice hotels. I'm traveling the country, going even, sometimes international, on rare occasions and stuff. Like, it does seem very glamorous. And you guys always just see the highlight reels, you don't see the missed flight connections, or me sprinting from one gate to the next, or, me, dealing with all the back end stuff. And, we don't share all that stuff. And, there's a lot of those unglamorous parts of it. But, if you're just seeing the highlight reels, it's very easy to believe what he's saying. Like, oh yeah, well, if I was, if you're in your world of, whatever it is that you do for your job, what you do for your day, and if you love cars, this is a dream job for a lot of people. And so if you're only seeing the positives, and like, it's like very easy to totally agree with that. I'm like, oh yeah, like if I got a free flight and I got, free accommodations, free meals, and they gave me, a car for the day to go nuts with, of course I'm going to say nice things. Like that totally makes sense. And he knows that, and he's playing into that to breed distrust in everyone else. And it's only believe me, don't believe anybody else, because they're all compromised. They're all fake news. It has similarities to certain other prominent people that it's the same tactic of, you can only believe me, you can only trust me, don't trust anyone else, because I'm the authority, I'm the only one that has the answers, the truth, whatever the case is. That's kind of the thing, because I know the people in this industry, and I know that an overwhelmingly huge majority of them are stand-up, top-notch people that are not biased, that are honest, that deserve, your trust, deserve your respect, that are fantastic human beings, first off, and fantastic reviewers who know their stuff, do their research, and are just to call those people untrustworthy because they accept free travel. Like, I couldn't do this if I had to pay for my own travel. Like, the profit margin is not there. Like, if you add up the flight, and even if I stayed at a Motel 6 and was eating McDonald's for everything, even just the flights, I would lose money. I would actually lose money going on any of these trips. It does not make that much per video, at least at my view level. Maybe, at Doug's level, of course, yeah, sure. But it is not, I would not be able to do that stuff. So if it wasn't for the free stuff, the free accommodations and all that, then them providing me with that opportunity, I'd still just be doing dealership stuff. And they understand that. I mean, journalism in general is not a well-paying position. I mean, even if you don't consider me a journalist, you can downgrade me to just a regular reviewer who, isn't a proper journalist, because some people, take, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of question that title. So don't even bother calling me a journalist, just as a reviewer. Like, it's just anyone who reviews stuff, like, you can't do that if you're paying for everything, and you're, unless you're a giant company and you can, justify it in other ways. But like, none of us could afford to really do that. And so that's just a necessary component, and it's understood, but it's also like, and this is why we all laugh at, whenever Doug and people say that kind of stuff, because like, we all know, like, this is not glamorous. Like, this, it seems glamorous, but it's not. And like, it's, giving me a steak and a glass of wine is not going to make me say that your piece of crap car is good. If it's crap, I'm going to say it's crap. And it's very disrespectful to think that any of us can be so easily swayed by a steak dinner and a free economy flight. Like, no, it's going to take a whole lot more than that for me to lie about a car. and as you guys know, I'll never lie. I call a spade for better or for worse, whether it's the popular opinion or the unpopular one. But that's really the main thing. There's other anecdotal things that are not my stories to tell. So that it's not just that, but again, I don't want to stir stuff up. And it's, again, these are other things that are things, again, because I've never met the guy, but things just from others that don't paint a great picture. But I'll leave it at that. Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on before I get a cease and desist. But let me see here. So Martin says, get a Mark 8 GTI Autobahn used with 18,000 miles, or a Mark 8.5 GTI SE brand new, both with the DSG and price basically about the same. Gotcha. So you're asking which one to get. I would say, so if the Autobahn isn't up, okay, so yeah, both DSG, so you don't care about, losing the manual, price about the same. It really comes down to how badly do you want the Autobahn features. Personally, I don't think you really need, it's weird with the way they do packaging. I can't remember what it is. There's a certain thing where I'm like, oh, maybe I would go for the Autobahn for that one thing, but I can't remember what it is. But essentially, you get a really well-equipped GTI in any of the trims. Honestly, I'd be fine with a base GTI if it just had the keyless access. That's the only thing that would keep me out of a base GTI and go to the SE. But between those two, I think the 8.5 upgrades are nice enough, as far as the usability of the infotainment, the steering wheel buttons, things like that, that especially if they're the same price, I would go for the SE brand new, unless, again, there's some gotta have feature with the Autobahn for you. But personally, for me, I'd go for the new one. And Lantern Tail says, of all the Golf generations, which one was the weakest and the strongest? I haven't driven all of them, so I like anything. The oldest one I've gone for is a Mark IV, and in my opinion, Mark IV is probably the least impressive of the ones I've driven. 1, 2, and 3. I think 1 obviously iconic, but I think 2 and even 3 also very iconic in their own ways. Mark IV just, for me, maybe it's just that time period right now just isn't very desirable. But I think, Mark IV to me is kind of the weakest, because Mark V, they started up in their game with performance, and it really seems like they started trying harder with that versus kind of resting on their laurels a little bit more with the Mark IV a little bit. And 6 also, 6 is fine, but I think 6 was kind of an evolution of 5 more so. I think 7 was a nice, real step up. And then same with 8. I think 8, again, a nice kind of evolution, but really moving the ball forward, a little bit there with power and stuff. So I think, for me, the strongest, I'd say Mark 7 is the peak, probably, again, especially for manual lovers. And so the way I'd rank them very briefly, again, from the ones I've driven, I'd say Mark 7, Mark 8, and I'm including the halves with that. 7, 8, 5 is probably a little more exciting than 6, and then below 6, I'd put 4. And then, depending on how 1, 2, and 3 were, kind of put them somewhere in the middle, probably. Mark 1, if it's really magical, maybe that could, end up still on the top spot. I just have no experience with them, unfortunately. And that one other guy says, just got an email that I got gifted a membership. Yes, that was very kind of, I think that one actually came from, Vatsy. So you can thank him for that there. And let me see. I'm glad you're enjoying the rants there, Chad. And Vatsy says, spot of the week for him was an Isuzu i370. Didn't think that was a thing. It's a rebadged Colorado. Oh, yeah, okay. Because I honestly didn't even know what that was either. But yes, I've seen every once in a while. There's 1 or 2 people around here actually with the rebadged Isuzu Colorado thing. So that's fun. You saw one though. That's awesome. And I see also, sorry, Chad, I missed your super chat, and also that one other guy. But Chad, thank you for a super chat. He says, slate to spur a low-cost electric resurgence. hope. I hope so too. It all comes down to price. If they price it right, it could. Um, but yeah, I think the electric resurgence is going to partially be fueled by the Chinese. But I think also, hopefully by like the affordable Fords that are coming here in the next, I think 2027, they said for those, right? I think hopefully that'll help a little bit too. We'll have to see. But yeah, that one other guy. Thank you so much for super chat as well. He says Mini Cooper EV will be our sporty car for a while. Sold the ND2. Good $100 to $150 Turos for farther technical road drives. F-Type, Z4, Boxster, others. I'm not sure what the pricing is like in your area. Usually that kind of stuff is way more than that pricing per day on Turos. Last time I checked, which was a while ago. But as far as, if you want something that's going to be like, road tripper, I don't know if F-Type's the best. There's really nowhere to put anything in an F-Type. There's no interior storage, stuff like that, which is, for me, important on a road trip. Comfort should be fine. I honestly, though, I don't think F-Type would be my go-to pick for a road trip car. Z4, probably not much better. Boxster, actually, you have more practicality with the frunk in that. And yeah, I'd go Boxster between those three. It really comes down to what you want. Because I mean, if you're talking, long road trip distances, I think, a Mustang would be a great Turo car. Even, Challenger, Camaro, maybe not quite as much because the windows are smaller and it's good for touristy kind of stuff if you're out on a road trip. But I think Mustang is a great road tripper. So that would probably be one of the ones I would say. Trying to think of others. Yeah, I don't know. That's probably the top ones I can recommend. I'm trying to think of other cars that are often on Turo that would be available to you that'd be good for road trips. Yeah, I don't know. I really think a Mustang would be great. And I've had plenty of experience with that too, so I can personally attest to that. So if I think of any others, I'll let you know, but I don't want to dwell on that too long. But yeah, that's probably some of the best ones there. And thanks for the hearts there. And Theodore, thanks so much for being a member for 2 months now. I really appreciate it. And I don't see any comment attached to that, but I think I see one before that, though. He says, "You're the best, Matt. That's why we're pulling for you." I appreciate that. Thanks so much for your support, Theodore, and for watching so many of the videos. Theodore, he goes back and watches and comments on some of the really old stuff from long ago, and he's enjoying some of that old stuff, which there's some real gems. I think obviously I'm biased, but I think there's some fun stuff from way back in the day. And I do also have a playlist now. I believe I got it all set. There's a playlist of classic Super X fan reviews from those days, all the funnest sporty stuff that's in a playlist, just to help people find some of those easier, because there might be some where it's like, oh yeah, I forgot he did that, but you're not going to dig way back into the car reviews playlist or dig way back into the channel to try and find that stuff. It's kind of buried unless the algorithm kind of surfaces that stuff for you. So I do have a playlist. I think, pretty sure it's out there. I'm hoping to still add a few more videos possibly to it when I have time. I've just been too busy, but most of the main ones I think are in there. If you want to go back and watch some of those classics like Theodore is. And thanks so much for your support. Let me see. That one other guy also following up says that maybe like $200 budget possibly, but he says no luggage concerns. I've rented Eco staying verts many times. Can't do those anymore. Only need 2 seats. Gotcha. Okay. Trading. Okay. So yeah, I mean, so if you're looking for just 2-seater, you don't care about practicality. Yeah, I mean, between those three, I think Boxster would be the first one to try for sure. I think that'd be the most sorted one. In that price range, though, there's really not a whole lot else. I mean, you could try a Corvette. That could be another fun one. You can probably get a nice like C7, maybe. I don't, for that money, I'm not sure. But Corvette would be a fun one to try if you haven't already. Trying to think of other stuff. Yeah, I'm all out of ideas. Those are probably all the best ones. I mean, as far if you want comfy, you can maybe see if you can rent any kind of, like Mercedes C-Class convertible of the last generation, something like that maybe could be nice. Yeah, then everything else is just gonna be, I think, more expensive. You got like your 8 Series, could be a great, road trip cruiser kind of thing. Um, yeah, just a bunch of, just higher end stuff, I guess. And he says, yeah, C7 was on his list as well. I forgot about it. Yeah, so that could be great. And C8 too, if you can get a drive in one of those, definitely worth trying, I think. And all right, let me see here. Getting back to their questions. I'm going to try and go quicker so we can stay up on all these here. So where were we here? Let me find my spot. Blue Violet's appreciating the free membership as well. So yeah, thanks. I'm glad to see it, people who are actually joining into the lives here that are able to get those memberships too. So thanks again, everyone, for your generosity. And Chat says there's an Amigo that's at a shop near my house, and the commercial pops in my head every time. It's fun for a good, and it's fun for a good and a boy. I don't think I've ever seen that commercial. I'll have to look it up for the Amigo. Because it's not certainly sticking in my head, that's for sure. So I'll have to refresh my memory. And Luke says, as far as the Xterra, I'm hoping for 38 to 52 grand, maybe a 3.3 or 3.5 V6 hybrid with about 22 mpg. It would be my next vehicle if they do that. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, yeah, see, if it's 38 to 52, you're already kind of, that's like Frontier pretty much. Maybe Frontier doesn't get that high, but yeah, I hope that they do hit that. I think if they do something like that, you're right. That'll be the path of success. And Chad says, I couldn't fit in the old Xterra, knees and dashed head hitting at the same time. Man, well, that's tough. I guess, yeah, I certainly can't relate to that with my shorter stature here. And Vishal says, following up on the hybrid thing, my commute is mixed city highway, 31 miles one way. Is a hybrid beneficial for that driving? Absolutely. I mean, as long as you're not doing straight highway, and even in that, it's arguable if you have any traffic on your highway drive, then you can also benefit there too. But yeah, if you are doing a mix at all, yeah, that's absolutely, and you're doing a nice long drive, because I'd also recommend against hybrids if you're doing short drives exclusively. But if you're doing a nice long drive where that motor's getting warmed up and you're doing a nice mix, yeah, I think actually a hybrid would be great for you personally. And Lantern Tail says, which company misused their legendary names? Acura RSX, Ford Mustang Mach-E, Honda Prelude, or Chevy Blazer? I think that, yeah, it's hard because I think a lot of them have done a lot of bad choices with names. I think GM might be, between Blazer. I feel like there's others too in the past that they've kind of tried and it hasn't worked out, and just things where they should have done stuff and they hadn't. But I don't know. Ford also, yeah. All of them. It's kind of. I don't think Honda is that bad, because as much as Prelude is expensive, I think that Prelude is fairly true to the formula for that car. So in a vacuum, I don't think I have a problem with Prelude. I mean, I'll have to drive it, but like Prelude is fine if it was priced right. I would have no issues with that. So I don't think Honda's necessarily bad, but I think the Acura RSX, certainly, I don't like that. Leaves a bad taste in my mouth for sure. Mach-E, I clearly got over it because we ended up having one for 3 years pretty much. But I think that yeah, for me, it's probably GM. And let me see here. Chad says Prelude can't be modded like the old one. We remember them as second, third owners after it was affordable. Modding it, making it fun. Is this a hard concept? Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it is though. Yeah, it's, people lose sight of that, and the same goes for the regular Integra and other stuff. Yeah, it's always people who never usually bought them new. The people who did buy these cars new, who are buying Integras back in the 90s, they wanted, they basically were buying a nicer Civic, and they understood that. That's what it always was. And that's what it is today. And that's why, even though I think Acura likes to say that Integra has a pretty youthful buyer base, Around me, a large majority of all the Integras I've seen on the road have been driven by older people. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that's exactly, I mean, again, yeah, someone's got to buy them new. Someone's got to take that depreciation hit. And who better than people who probably have some net worth under their belt, who have some some equity and have a little bit of money to spare. And then they can be used cars for everyone else who wants to go nuts with them in 5 or 10 years. But I think that you're right. That's kind of always the way it's kind of been. Same thing with Prelude, and I think it's going to be kind of the same thing. You will see probably older people. You'll see, older single professionals and stuff like that that are going to be, the kind of people that they go for Prelude. Still don't think it's going to sell in large numbers, but the few they do sell, I think that's who it's going to go to for the most part. Because anyone who's younger and actually wants something fun and exciting, everyone's going for Type R for the same money, or they're saving a few grand and getting Integra or getting the Civic Si and saving a bunch of money. So but yeah, I think it is something that people don't appreciate, and that a lot of the internet stuff that's a common thread. Is it's a lot of people are like, oh, why can't they make manuals? Are you buying a manual new? Well, no, I want to buy it used. That's and that's why I've always said, if you want to send a message to a car company, if you want to support something, you got to buy it new. You're not doing anyone any favors by buying it used. I mean, yes, they're making a little bit of money on servicing, but that doesn't factor into their data. If you're trying to justify a car and you want to support it, you got to buy it new. That's the way to do it for sure. Let me see. BG says, hi, Matt. When is the Telluride drive? I don't know. I haven't been invited. And I don't know. Kia is so far behind with their media drives. And this is why I also don't go on most of them, because they are 2 months after these things are in dealers. Car Confection's already bought one. And they haven't hit my dealer yet that I work with, but they are going to hit them fairly soon, I think, because they're all in transit. I'll probably just go to the Kia dealer and just review one that way. And I mean, again, because I wasn't invited, but even if I was invited, why would I go when I can go, just drive it at a dealer? And the great thing about dealers too is you can drive lower trims. All these media drives, typically Toyota is one of the few examples of an exception of that, but typically you're always driving the top trim. And I don't want to review the top trim. I want to try and go for the more affordable stuff and the mainstream selling, trims. And that's what the dealer, can provide. So that's definitely the way I'll be doing Telluride, I think. Now they'll probably send me one as a press car in, 6 or 9 months or something. And I can, review it then or do a week with, at that point. But I'll probably be reviewing it here early spring personally, but I don't know about the media drive, unfortunately. Luke says, with home ownership, when you start tearing things apart, you never know what you will find. That's certainly for sure. This is why I try and avoid tearing stuff apart as little as possible. Just leave things be until they make themselves a problem. It's especially again with my current financial situation, that's definitely the way that I'm going about it. And let me see. Nightbreaker says, winter 2024, 2025, we had a water pipe break inside one of our bedroom closet walls. Had to vacate 2 bedrooms for a whole month for repairs. Wow, that is terrible. Sorry to hear that. That is, man, I can't imagine. That's, well, glad that's in the past, and best of luck for everything in the future. But man, that's nightmare stuff for me. And Legend Tale says, Mercedes this week stated they will discontinue the 4-cylinder C63. Really? I must have missed that. I didn't see that they said they were completely axing it. I've heard rumblings of that, but I didn't know that was actually confirmed. But it makes sense. It just, I think they went a little bit of a bridge too far there, and they needed to have the baby step of the 6-cylinder, which is what we're seeing, from Audi and others. It sounds like, that's going to be the way it'll probably go. So I think that, it makes sense to go to the 6-cylinder first, and then you can do the 4-cylinder plug-in hybrid thing, in 5 or 10 years, once people have warmed up to this, concept a little bit more. But until then, I think, trying to go back to 6-cylinders makes more sense. Or maybe they'll try to do a V8 again. I don't know. We do know the CLE seems like it's going to have the V8, but I don't know if they're going to do it for the C63. They've previously said they won't, but I don't know if I totally believe that. And let me see. Timothy says, "Have you ever changed the auto industry through new feature recommendations?" Um, I don't know. I doubt it. I mean, usually anything that I say, I'm not the only one who says it either. I mean, maybe I'm part of the chorus that's, maybe having a little bit of influence, but I doubt it. I mean, there's some things where like I'll complain about something and a year or two later, that thing will be fixed. But again, I'm sure I'm not the only one that complains about that stuff. But like a prime example, like whenever Hyundai had their new infotainment software for this new generation that launched, I think it was 2024 when that started coming out. I complained that whenever you're listening to radio, it only shows you album art and it doesn't show you the song title or the artist. And I complained in every single Hyundai review and Kia review in 2024 or whatever. This is not the way this should be. Like, I don't care about the album art. Like, album art's nice to see, but I certainly would rather see song and artist if I have to choose between one or the other. And sure enough, now on the 2026s, it still has that same widget and everything is set up the same, but they now have song title and artist there along with. So they were able to do everything. And I don't know why they ever chose not to, but they added that in. Again, I'm sure it wasn't just me, but hopefully, my comment among the many others, showed them they needed to, change that little thing. But yeah, aside from that, I think, they listen to feedback, but I think more so they listen to consumer feedback. I think they kind of can predict and know what they're going to get themselves into with a lot of us car reviewers. They know kind of how we tick in many ways. And so, there's some of that where, I mean, like all of us are complaining. Every single car reviewer pretty much is complaining about how GM has no CarPlay in their EVs and soon to be, other stuff in the future. And they're still like, nope, we don't care. This is the way we're doing it. And especially so for things like that, where there's a money component where like they have their eye on the prize of monetizing data connections for the rest of eternity, so that you can actually use the infotainment system the way you can whenever it's new. There are certain things where they're not going to listen to feedback no matter how many people, say stuff. But I think little things like that Hyundai thing are a nice example of, a few of us maybe can bring something up and then that, gets changed. And I'm trying to think if there's any other things. There might have been one or two other things in the past where I've complained. I'm like, oh, they finally fixed that. But again, I don't think it actually has anything to do with me, honestly. But it's a fun thing to think about. And I hope that at least I've, influenced things slightly, even if again, I'm just joining in with the chorus of others. Hopefully that, has made some minor little improvements. I don't know. And Vishal says, did you see Honda brought the Insight back as an EV? It won't be sold in the States. And it seems from the brief look I got at it, really, I don't know, man, I feel like I've been doing a better job of keeping up on car news here since I've been doing the rants, but I didn't see that at all. So is it going to be just for like Japan, or now I'm curious. I'll have to look into that. Thanks for bringing it to my attention, but I have no idea. I had no idea that was a thing. Interesting. And Vishal says, did you see that Ford will be getting back to sedan and a minivan in America? Has that been confirmed? I don't think I saw that. I saw that they're saying how they want to do, more variants of that electric platform. And I saw a headline that said like it's not like they said never say never for some of these things, but I don't think they confirmed anything unless again I haven't looked at the car news today to see if there's anything super new. But a minivan, I'd be surprised especially to see that from them. But I mean, I think it'd be great to see a sedan and a minivan from Ford again, but I'll also look into that and see, but I hadn't heard that. But thanks again for bringing that to my attention as well. And Lantern Tail says, I remember when you drove that Dude in Blue's Mustang. A lot of things happened to that car since you last drove it. That's for sure. That car has a history. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And that was my first, not my first Mustang experience, but my first of, at least like, well, not even the S197. It was one of my first, like most exciting, I guess, Mustang experiences beyond. I did a couple of test drives at dealers, but to really kind of, open it up in one that's modified and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, that was a highlight for sure. And let me see. Lancelot says, Matt, I considered you the most upstanding car viewer there is. I appreciate that. I try my best to put it all out there, and I'm glad you're enjoying the videos still, Lancelot. And Iggs or Sig says, I upvote the comment above. I appreciate that. Thank you. And that one other guy says, as a reviewer, you have to be willing to honestly review the car in a way that could get you disinvited to future paid press events. I mean, I guess it depends. Maybe some other reviewers, they're nervous about like biting the hand that feeds them. But as I've said many times, for me, I don't care. Like, I've always, one of the things I'm very fortunate. I mean, I guess others just don't have the same dealer connections I have, but for me, I have so many dealer connections. And even if I didn't have that, I have so many of you who have offered your cars so generously to me. I will never run out of cars to review. Even if every car company gave me double middle fingers and cussed me out and like wrote me off forever, I'd be fine. Like this channel would be fine. I mean, obviously the opportunities would be different, and I very much appreciate every opportunity I have. It's not like I, want to seem like I'm ungrateful, but no one is going to make me bite my tongue. If something sucks, I'm always going to say it sucks. So, I mean, there's others I've heard from some other, reviewers how they've, there's things like, it's kind of a running joke in the car reviewer world. A lot of people are familiar with what's called, I don't know if I can swear on the lives without getting dinged for it. It's called the crap sandwich, but swap the word for something other than that. But where you construct a criticism where you say, I really love the way it handles, even if the tires are garbage, but it feels really good still in corners, or something like that, where like you weasel in the negative thing you want to say, but you wrap it around nice stuff so it doesn't seem as pointed, and you smooth it over, I guess, and so that's something that I guess is a common practice that a lot of, reviewers feel safer, wrapping their complaints in compliments. But for me, I genuinely don't give a crap if a car is terrible up and down, which, I mean, that's the thing, is you don't have to sugarcoat things very much, because most cars are pretty good already anyway. And so there's very few times where I'm like, oh man, like I'm going to have to hammer them for this. I mean, that does happen, and I absolutely do hammer them, and I don't pull punches whenever there are those types of things. But like, that doesn't, I mean, as you guys, if you watch, all the reviews, I mean, it's fairly rare when I'm going off on a rant about how something sucks in a car. It happens for sure, but it's not super common, and that's just because, again, most stuff is pretty good these days. But no, I if I get disinvited to stuff, I don't care. I really don't care. It's because I mean, like I've said many times before too, with the trips, it's getting harder and harder to justify trips anyway. Even if everyone, didn't have a problem with me or anything, like, it's still just like, from my side of it, the trips are getting harder and harder to justify sometimes. So we'll see. I'm going to keep doing some this year, but I've been a lot more picky already this year. I said no to a lot of stuff. I actually had an opportunity to do the New York Auto Show. Someone was asking, I think in the last live, about if I'm going to go to New York, and I said at that time no one had actually offered or anything, and I can't afford to go on my own, because just like the other stuff, it's too expensive and just doesn't make enough money. But I actually just this week was offered, someone wanted to host me for the New York Auto Show, but based on what I've heard about the show, I mean, it's, I guess there's not too much I can say, but like, I just made the decision I'm not going to go to New York this year, even if I can go for free, because again, it's not worth the travel, the time, the expenses that I do incur. I pay for parking at the airport. I pay for, my meals while I'm, in the airports and stuff like that. So, I mean, it isn't completely free anyway. And then, if a video is getting 2,000 views, and I'm making, $20 on a video or something, like, no, that's not worth flying to New York City, going through all the hassle, paying $50 to park at the airport and whatever they got, all this stuff. It's actually, it is a money loser. So that's part of why I'm really selective with a lot of this stuff now. So yeah, you can always count on me to not even care about being disinvited. That's not worried. And also, car companies are pretty cool about the criticism. I think maybe some of the newer reviewers who are a little nervous, or people who just don't have maybe the viewership that some of the smaller channels that feel like they don't have the power to maybe bite the hand that feeds them or whatever. But I mean, again, not like my channel is huge either anymore, but I think, like, yeah, for me, I don't care. I'm grateful for everything I get, but it's I'm not gonna be swayed. So I know I apologize, I'm going way too off the rails on all that stuff, but it's just something that I'm very, very standing firm on, and very proud of personally. But anyway, let me see here. Chat, sorry I missed the super chats here a while ago. He says, amigo, it's fun for a girl and a boy on repeat. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. And Jordan, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, any whispers of a Tesla cyber car? I think someone spied one just like sitting in a public parking lot this week. Just doing testing and stuff. I don't know. I'm not following the cyber car thing. That may end up actually being vaporware, depending on how things play out for Tesla here. And anything with Tesla, I'll believe it whenever I see it actually in consumers' hands and fully launched. Because a lot of these things are they take forever if they do actually ever come to fruition. Let me see. So Lantern Tail says, what would Henry Ford think of Ford right now? I don't know. I mean, I think those types of the way those kinds of questions are framed, it's hard because, I mean, like Henry Ford would have no idea about like what the realities of the market is like today. It'd be a completely different thing. It's like asking any 80-year-old right now, like what they think of the car industry or what they think. I mean, obviously Henry Ford would be a lot older than 80, right now, but you ask any really, really old person, it's like, oh, things are so much more expensive these days. Why does everything have to be so complicated? But it all comes down to what you're used to, what your comfort level is, what generation you're in, what you grew up with, all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure Henry Ford would probably be like, oh, well, what's wrong with Model Ts or whatever, and want to just go back to that kind of stuff. But I think any modern person understands the realities of what the car market is like these days, what the consumers want, what they expect, all that kind of stuff. So I think someone like that would never understand anything about 2026 or why things are the way they are, probably. But let me see. So Brandon says, I think performance cars are super cool, but starting to not care. I'm leaning towards a super comfortable, affordable, reliable type of car and SUV. What would you trade in a 2025 RS3 for? Wow. Yeah, that's a special car. I mean, if you're not super into that anymore, I guess it would come down to how far you want to get from the RS3 from a driving kind of standpoint. Because if you're completely ready to like abandon ship, that's one answer. If you're, just looking for something a little bit softer, I think that, for example, going for, like an S5 or prior gen S4, something bigger and comfier, or even, A4, just try to take baby steps instead of just like recommending you get a Prius or something like that, although Prius is actually fun these days too. But if you're looking super comfy, affordable, reliable, for something like that, it sounds like you're looking at like a Lexus ES, or even, honestly, like the mainstream midsize sedans were all pretty good. Honda Accord, although I actually, never mind, because those motors are not great in the Hondas anymore. So, I'd say probably, yeah, Camry, something like that. Although Camry isn't the smoothest ride out there. I mean, trying to think of some actual good answers for you here. Um, if you appreciate the RS3's handling, I think something like even a regular Cadillac CT5 or something like that could be fun. But if you're looking for a little bit cheaper than that and maybe a little more reliable, then that really kind of leaves you with, yeah, pretty much, Toyota, Lexus kind of products. I think would be kind of good. Maybe a good, if you're already used to the size of the RS3, I'm assuming maybe you like that size of a vehicle. Maybe Lexus IS could maybe be a nice option for you. Obviously much less high performing, but still same kind of package and formula and stuff. But yeah, otherwise ES could be great. Toyota Crown could maybe be a good one, something like that. You get a bunch of, great fuel economy there with especially the lower, non-hybrid max, versions of the Crown. That could be a good way to go. And yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Even if you just go like Honda Civic hybrid hatch, could be super great. I mean, honestly, for you, like a Prelude may actually fit kind of what you're looking for there. Because it's not super sporty, it's slow, but it's probably pretty reliable with that hybrid setup. I mean, I guess that probably doesn't qualify under affordable unless, I mean, you got an RS3, so I mean, maybe 42 grand is affordable, coming out of that. So Prelude could actually maybe kind of, you'd be one of the few people I could recommend that car to. Otherwise, I mean, there's a lot of really nice, comfy stuff. You can pick up a nice used Genesis G80, big boaty kind of comfortable stuff. And I mean, like that's like I have a friend who like that's kind of his stable. So he has a Scion FRS that he still loves beating up on and driving like he stole it. But then whenever he just wants to cruise his daily drivers, he's got a Genesis. It was a Hyundai Genesis before it became the G80, but he's got a 2015 Genesis with the V8, and that thing's just a boat, but it handles really well still, and he loves that thing. So I think that could be, something like that could be a really good value. And if you get the extended warranty, or you get a certified one, so you get the 10-year, Hyundai warranty, that could be great. But also, yeah, like depending on how old you go and what you're looking for. I mean, any of the older Lexus stuff, like an old LS could be a cool, thing to kind of just cruise around in. That's super soft. I think there's, the European stuff I hesitate to recommend because they can be basket cases when they're older. So I'd probably say if you do want to go that route, get an extended warranty. Yeah, it sounds like a Lexus is probably the next step for you if those are your main focuses, or yeah, something like a Toyota, just regular kind of stuff. Hopefully it helps you a little bit. That one other guy says trading in a blessed late RS3. What is that car possibly not doing for you? Yeah, I do love the RS3, so that'd be a hard one for me to give up for sure. And Chad says thoughts on the new Grand Tour lineup. I honestly think the YouTubers are great. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the Throttle House guys are great. I think they will probably do a really good job. I don't know the Train guy, but the Throttle House guys seem to think that he's really good too, and actually into cars. I think that's always the thing that's irked me about some of the reboots of Top Gear is they have people who are like kind of car people, but they just like have to have celebrities. So they're like, oh, we got to like get someone who just has a huge following. And I think that, with Clarkson, Hammond, and May, like none of them were like celebrities. They were just like actual car people. Like, James May was writing for car magazines. I think Hammond kind of same deal. And Clarkson, was in the earlier Top Gear, but always was kind of a personality, but like none of them were like celebrities before that. And, I think like that obsession that the producers of Top Gear post, those three, it's always been like, oh, we're gonna have celebrities. So people aren't gonna watch unless there's some like big name attached to this. And I think that's the wrong approach because I know that, they're having this huge widespread appeal in the UK and stuff, but I think they needed to get back to, okay, let's have this be a car show for car people. And to do that, you need to have people who know what they're talking about, who know how to drive, who, I mean, not like, I don't think Clarkson and all them are like the greatest drivers, but, good enough. And I think, with the newest iterations of Top Gear, it was just, you can kind of tell these people enjoy cars, and I don't knock that, but they're no experts. Like I love the Chris Harris segments on Top Gear. He actually knew what he was talking about. Everybody else, I mean, like what Matt LeBlanc, the other one, right? He was really fun to watch, and I enjoyed his commentary and stuff, but like it was just not. You could just tell he wasn't super knowledgeable about every little nerdy car thing, and so I think like, yeah, it's a shame because they've always kind of tanked it. They've had some really good people, and then they've dropped the ball on some of the others there. But I think that it'll be probably pretty good. It's with the Grand Tour, it's a little different because your expectations there are a little different than it is for, I think, Top Gear. I think Grand Tour, they're going to probably still capitalize on, the main thing of Grand Tour, which was like the misery of, 3 hilarious cars and you're just, beating the hell out of them. And, it's that kind of thing more so than the car review stuff, I think, which is why I think, they're saying Throttle House isn't going away. So I think that's going to primarily be the review thing. And this is just going to be like, going to Botswana and, these kinds of places and doing all these wild adventures. I think that'll mostly be what Grand Tour continues to be. We'll have to wait and see. But I think for that kind of stuff, I don't know. I've never seen the Throttle House guys in like, an adventure kind of scenario because I don't watch all their stuff and I don't know if they've done things like that. But yeah, but I mean, I think it's a good group. There certainly could have been worse choices for the new Grand Tour. So I'm happy with the way that went. And let me see. Brandon says, yeah, I know as far as the RS3, he says, iconic 5-cylinder, but I feel maintenance will get high down the road. I'm not sure about reliability. Sometimes space is tight with a newborn too. Yeah, with a newborn, I can see how that can be tough. I mean, if the reliability thing's a worry, then obviously that's not going to get better with any of the other Audis. But, you could probably get a lightly used, S5 Sportback, something like that, and still have a lot of fun and have that better practicality, I think, if you wanted to kind of, transition into something similar, same brand and stuff, but just, a little less tough to live with there. And Lantern Tail says, I think the C6 Corvette is when the Corvette peaked. Limited technology, just raw performance and classic styling. Interesting. C6 for me is like one of my least favorite generations of the Corvette. I think I don't love the styling still. The front, I never loved the front end. It was like they had to ditch the flip up headlights, but that was so iconic for them that they just didn't know what to do. And so you just had some very like blah, like, I don't know. Again, maybe it's just because of the generation of where they landed. And just, yeah, personally, I mean, the Z06 was kind of cool, but I'd never had a lot of love for the C6. I thought C7 was great. And I think C7, you still had the manual, you still had, the front engine thing. It was still very raw, in my opinion. And it was great. And you had still, like CarPlay and things like that from the factory, at least, so it was, for me, I think C7, if you're a traditionalist, was still the peak, in my opinion. I think I've been hearing more and more people though say C5 was actually the peak for them because, you had the iconic flip up headlights. It was really basic. They're affordable. So I think there's a lot of love there. I mean, C6 is affordable too, but I think there's a lot of love for them that way too. But yeah. I mean, there are some cool C6s, like, the ZR1 was cool and stuff, but I'm curious what your guys' favorite Corvette generations are. And Brian says his spot, he saw a Bentley today. Nice. That's awesome. And Tumbling Mustard, thanks for stopping by. He says, I went to the auto show in my town and got to sniff around the Charger, gas and EV. I'm shocked at how high the floor feels. Yeah, you do really sit up high in them. I mean, they're just so big. And glad you got to check one out. But yeah, this is why, kind of like I said in my weekly thing, it's the no compromise sports car because it's kind of, it's high. It's got a big back seat. It's got a huge cargo area. It makes you question, do you actually need a crossover? For a lot of people, I think the answer will be no, you actually don't. If you were being pragmatic and and actually analyzing what you do with your stuff, but anyway, yeah, I'm glad you got to enjoy the auto show there. And that one other guy says car makers care about those who will buy new, not those who buy secondhand once it's worth peanuts. Voting with your dollar means buying new. Absolutely. And Patricia says, best YouTuber ever. Thank you, Patricia. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you're doing well. And the other guy says, I was so inspired by a 2018 Savage Heats video saying buy new or watch it go away that I bought a brand new Miata. I voted for the continued existence of that car. And thank you for doing that and for supporting that cause. That's certainly a good one. And yeah, you got to hand it to Mazda. I'm impressed with, they keep Miata around. They have, the CX-90 with this brand new inline 6 turbo rear wheel drive platform. They're doing some great stuff, and they're reliable. They're attractive. They're luxurious. And they're great value. Mazda is one of the easiest companies to be a cheerleader for right now, because they just, I really hope they can keep this up, because it's really good what they're doing. Danny, thanks for stopping by. He says, hello, drove the Bolt Thursday, Friday, and today. My grandma's Accord rolled over 93,000 miles this week. The wind was so bad when I was driving the Bolt, I felt it getting pushed around in the lane. Yikes. Yeah, that's something that I feel every once in a while too, especially in the Fiat, getting blown around a little bit there for sure. But glad you're doing well there. And let me see. Vishal says that the Kia dealer near me has some 27 Tellurides on their lot already. Yeah, my dealer's strangely slow with getting them. I'm not sure why, but yeah, so they're absolutely there, and that's, once cars hit dealers, then as a car viewer that's going on these trips, the incentive to go on a trip goes out the window the second they're at the dealers for most of us, because we can go to dealers and review stuff. And I mean, yeah, it's not the same curated experience. And for certain things, if you're talking about something where you're getting track time or you're getting to do off-roading, there are certain things where, yeah, you can't, copy all that stuff. But if it's just regular stuff that you're only going to be reviewing on a regular road anyway, yeah, it's just doesn't make sense to do these late media drives. And yeah, Danny says the wind was really bad today. Yeah, it was really windy here too. Wind chills are super low. We're in I think it was like -5 earlier when I checked as far as the wind chill, and like single digits as far as the actual temperature, but very windy. Last night was super windy. So maybe you're getting what we got last night. Last night we had like snow squalls and like pretty intense wind. And so hope all goes well there for you, Danny. And Mr. 705 says, hey, I'm late getting here. I was watching a movie. Well, hope the movie was good, and thanks for stopping by. And Nightbreaker says, thanks, Matt. Yeah, that totally sucked. I'm glad the ordeal is in the past. Yeah, with the exploding closet of water. That's crazy. And Bobby says, got a flat tire tonight on my Michelins when I was out delivering my pizzas. Oh, that sucks. You just got those tires. He says, don't have a spare in the RS3, so I had to cancel my orders tonight. Oh, man. Sorry to hear that. A lot of people are getting flat tires. Yeah, I got one. You got one. There's actually someone else in our neighborhood who got one. I think there's a couple of nails that were thrown out of someone's garbage can or something. Because 2 people in my neighborhood, me included, got a flat in the same area. But then also there was metal shards on one of the highways here in Pittsburgh, and I think it's 20 cars got flat tires or something here in the past week. I guess it's just this time of year too, with the snow kind of collecting stuff and bunching things up, and it doesn't fly off the road as easily. Some of these nails and debris and stuff. Maybe that's part of it too. But flat tires are the worst. This is why I love that the Lyric has the Michelin self-seal kind of thing, where it actually absorbs, and there's a little layer of foam that will seal around a puncture to stop it from going flat. So it's like a next generation run flat in a way. And I love that, because it means I don't have to worry about Beth getting a flat, because if she does get a puncture, I think it keeps driving as normal and seals that up. I mean, obviously you have to replace the tire eventually, but at least it's not a showstopper for the day. And I really hope that continues to evolve, because it's why are we still having to worry about flat tires in 2026 technology and stuff? That should be something that should have been sorted out by now, I think, but hopefully we're on our way to doing that. But sorry to hear that. Hopefully you can get a replacement tire pretty quickly there, Bobby. And Lantern Tail says, saw an SN97 Mustang at my local meet. Typical SN95 build. Dude is on his fourth engine, and he's starting to get worried about parts for it. Interesting. I mean, I feel like there should still be pretty good parts availability for SN95s, right? I'm curious what he's worried about going away, but maybe there are certain things. I don't know. Sorry, I'm like, it's been a long day. I've been doing a lot of running around, so sorry if I'm a little more tired here than usual. But let me see. Danny says the Bolt was being pushed around. My dad, when my dad has 98 Cavalier, whenever he was passing an 18 wheeler, the wind coming off the trailer would make his Cavalier literally do the shimmy. Yeah, there's some of those vehicles that are very susceptible to that. I remember when I was coming back from the Detroit Auto Show. This was, I think, 2017 or 2018. I had the new Wrangler two-door. And driving through the plains in Ohio there, where there's just crosswinds that are nuts in January. I mean, that thing, I was really getting blown around. Like, it was like I had to focus on going straight. And that was not a fun experience. So yeah, some of those more boxy vehicles, it's no fun, especially when they're on the smaller side. They said the Cavalier only weighed about 2,600 pounds. Yeah, so that'll certainly help throw it around too. And he says rare spot for him was a 2001 Kia Amani. That's awesome, or Amante, I think is maybe how you pronounce that. But that's awesome. You don't see those very often anymore. Let me see. Chad says Danny says Chad is saying to Danny about he had a Cavalier, so he can attest to that. Let me see. Vishal says more on the Ford story. They'll launch 5 models for under 40 grand in the US this decade: car, truck, SUV, and a van. New names and different types of powertrains. Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm glad that they're getting that feedback from people, that people actually want this and they're actually going to make that stuff. Again, I will believe it when I see it. I think, affordable vehicles certainly make sense, even going into a bad economy, but Ford's been doing a lot of plan changing recently, so I'm a little hesitant to, really believe anything that they're going to be doing. I hope so, but that would be great if they could actually make that happen. Thanks for the follow-up on that. Nightbreaker, sorry, I'm missing some of these super chats. Thank you so much, Nightbreaker, for the super chat. He says, in your opinion, what's the most fun affordable car? Or the most fun affordable car? I mean, for me, honestly, it's got to be Miata. I think ND2 or later Miata, that motor is just magical. And for me, it's more fun because you're more immersed in the experience because you can have the top down. But it's just a great manual. It's a great little car. It's reliable. It'll run forever. They hold their resale value pretty well. It's just a pure joyous experience. I think that's the best. I think, the runner-up is still the GR86 BRZ, but I think that Miata is better. Oh, sorry. I promise I'm not bored. I'm just very tired. Chad says Top Gear is basically a religious car experience. Yeah, Top Gear, I mean, magical. Especially those classic episodes. It's like, oh man, it's I miss Top Gear. And Chad also said, thank you for another super chat. He says, if one more northerner complains about cold, I'm throwing iguanas. We don't own snow tires. You all know how to run from an alligator. Nope, we definitely do not. Honestly, I don't mind the cold. It's cold for sure, but I'm one of these crazy people who actually enjoys all 4 seasons, and I love snow. I mean, at this point in the year, most northerners are getting a little bit over the snow thing, but personally, I enjoy it. It's fun to slide around in and try out my driving skills on. Even rain. I love rain. I love driving in rain. It's so fun. But yeah, I hope you're enjoying whatever the temps are currently in Florida right now. Hope it'll be nice. I'm going to be doing some traveling here coming up here the pretty near future. So stay tuned for that, but I'll be going to some warmer places, and I'm excited to get a little break here, get some vitamin D, get some sun, and get out of the cold for a little bit. Let me see here. So we have about 20 more minutes to go, and I am going to need to sign off right at like the 2-hour mark this time. So I'm going to just try and catch up on comments a little bit more here towards the end. I may go to just member only here for the last little bit, but we'll see if I can be concise and quit going on long tangents. But Chad says I had to pay extra for them to put a CD player in his car. Yeah, those are the good old days. Yeah, I remember it was big business for Best Buy and all those places to be doing CD players and stuff. And Danny says, here's my dad's list of features he wanted for a new car in 1998: transportation, an automatic transmission, and a cassette player. Yep, that's for a lot of people, those were nice luxuries. Maybe add in air conditioning, because that wasn't always standard by that point either. But yeah, Chad says $12,999, only one VIN from the newspaper. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, I was also, where was I? Oh, there was someone on the Facebook group, one of the Facebook groups I follow, which is a low miles, no miles. So it's kind of the opposite of the like mileage impossible. So this one is like people who have like super low miles on a bunch of cars that are, you know, not super special cars, but just low miles. And anyway, there was a neon. Someone had like I don't know, a 9,000 mile Dodge Neon or something for sale, and it had like the original window sticker. It was like $14,000, and the starting price was like 11 and change. This was like a nicer one, so it was like 14 grand. And it's like, man, yeah, it's obviously, again, people were making less money back then and all that too, but it's still just, it's impressive, some of those prices when you see them. Let me see. Vishal says the Honda Insight thing will be a coupe SUV based on the Honda ENS2, which is another coupe SUV in China. It'll be in Japan for now. Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know why they don't want to just do a new name. They just keep resurrecting the old ones there. But hope it works out for them. Lantern Tales is asking if there's any luck finding a Mirage to review. I've had a couple that I've had at my disposal, which is unfortunately it hasn't worked out as far as, you know, timing for one is scheduling and being able to fit it in. And then also a lot of times whenever the Mirage comes up at the used car dealers, there's other cars that I think would get better views than the Mirage. So then the Mirage gets bumped down the priority list and I just never get to it. So that's kind of been the struggle with Mirage. But I still want to review one, and it's a car that I think is going to be important to review here probably this year too, just for the affordability factor. So yeah, I'm hoping to get to one here eventually. Maybe we'll try and see if we can do it this spring. Chad agrees we need to see the Mirage review. So yeah, I'll try and maybe I'll make it more of a priority here so that we can get that one done. And thank you for your feedback and for letting me know you guys still want to see that one. And Lantern Tail says the sedan version of the Mirage called the G4 looks so goofy. Yeah, the proportions were kind of weird. The hatchback's definitely the way you want to go for those, I think. Let me see. I think, oh yeah, we missed another super chat here from Scott. Thank you so much, Scott, for a super chat. He says, any knowledge of the V8 Maserati Gran Turismo reliability? I believe you drove one. Any memory of it? I'm starting to shop for them. I don't know too much about the reliability. Yes, I did review I didn't do the Gran Turismo. I did the what did I do? The Quattroporte. That's the one that I did. Same motor. But I've never done a Gran Turismo actually. But I don't know about the motor's reliability. I don't think there's anything super problematic with that. It's all the auxiliary stuff that's, always the concern. Yeah, I don't know. I have a friend who had the Quattroporte I reviewed was his. And he would be the better expert as far as that goes. I'm not sure if his Instagram's public or not. The general way to do research on reliability for anything, though, I think the best way to go about it is to, join in on forums and search the forums first before you ask questions. But, join the forums there, see if you can get a consensus of what actual owners are saying, and, go into it with the understanding that a lot of people are only showing up to complain. And when they're out happily driving around, they're not going to be going and discussing their car with other people online. But I think that's that's going to be one of your best ways, that in Facebook groups, things like that. But personally, I have not heard of any gigantic issues with the V8s. It's more so, the electrical stuff and, just the maintenance things being expensive and hard and stuff like that. And just build quality stuff too, water leaks, things like that, I think are some of the more common things. But I'm not an expert, but that would be a really fun pickup if you can get one for a nice, low price that's still well cared for. Good maintenance records and stuff like that. Hopefully it'll be okay with going for one. I honestly haven't. I feel like no one really talks about Gran Turismos much anymore. I want to review one of the old V8 ones. I think it seems like it's a really good deal these days. I mean, again, probably some parts you gotta spend money on, but yeah, I feel like that's a really underappreciated car currently. And Chad, thank you for our super chat. This is review of Mirage before it's on Relics. Yeah, that's true. And I'm hoping to do, it's been a little while since I did another Relics of the Rust Belt junkyard walk. I'm hoping to do another one here sometime this month. The way my schedule's working out, and then the weather being terrible and stuff, it's just been hard to get out there and do them in the past few weeks here. But I'm hoping to do one here in the next few weeks for sure. And Jordan, thank you so much for a very generous super chat. I really appreciate that. He says, Matt, be 100% true thoughts. We already have China tech in the US with the iPhone and stuff. Will Chinese EVs make it to the US market? If so, when and what reactions, revisions could appear and why? So, I mean, I think as far as when will they make it to the US market, I think so the first part of your question, I think they will get here eventually. I think that's pretty much inevitable. Whether they get here under their own brand names or they get here, rebadged as a Ford or a Dodge or something like that. Because we see a lot already in China like that, where there's legacy brands that are using the platform and just kind of rebadging Chinese stuff. So either you see it that way or you see just the actual Chinese brands coming in. But either way, it's going to happen. Geely has said 2 to 3 years for them. At CES, they actually, they didn't confirm that's their plan, but they were like, speaking in a hypothetical, like, well, we could maybe come in like 2 to 3 years, which coincidentally lines up with, the end of Trump's term, potentially. But so I think that's kind of, I think, what you can expect, because I think a lot of car companies on the EV side are also expecting, the reinstatement of CAFE standards and the reinstatement of any kind of, EPA backbone and, enforcing emissions regulations and stuff like that and improving that stuff. So I think that, everyone understands the next few years are a free for all. And then, once we get to 2029, 2030, we're probably going to have to start again, being responsible and doing things, with an eye on progress. And so I think that would be my guess as far as when you can expect it. But I think BYD, especially as, has the potential, since they have a factory in America that builds buses and commercial stuff already, it seems, that you can just take over that factory and retool it and make, some EVs here. Because, Trump has opened up the door to that. He said, if they want to build them here and hire our workers, then he welcomes it. So, I think that's probably something you can hopefully take to the bank. There's just so many other geopolitical things that are going to cause some wrenches to be thrown into that. Because one, you never know when Trump's going to change his mind. So if the Chinese do take this risk of, okay, we're going to retool this factory and, he said we're good as long as we build them here and stuff. If all of a sudden someday, Trump wakes up and decides he doesn't like China anymore, then they would be royally screwed. So even them, as desperate as I think they are to try and get into the U.S. market even sooner than, 2029, I think 2029 is probably the safer bet for everybody, because, you're hopefully going to have a little more predictability, a little bit more of a level-headed kind of trade policy and stuff like that. And I think that's, what a lot of these car companies are like, okay, well, we'll just wait until then, and then we can start getting back to actually doing things in a predictable non-volatile way. And I think that's kind of the goal. But I think, especially when we're talking about Chinese EVs, the other real question is, I mean, they definitely want to take over Taiwan. I mean, they've said like they want to do that. I think 2027 was the goal. Now, with their whole military shakeup, that could end up getting pushed back. And I don't know what they're going to plan. And I mean, again, this is kind of waiting out of the car thing, but like, if they decide to start a war, I think that you could see not only the US, but also you could see a whole lot of other people. Canada could all of a sudden be like, okay, never mind, we don't want Chinese EVs anymore because you're a bad guy again because you're going and attacking Taiwan or something. So there's some of those things where they kind of shoot themselves in the foot, which I hope actually, if their economic side wins out of this, devil and angel on their shoulders kind of thing, if they want to be viewed as this more responsible superpower in the world that's more reliable to deal with than America now. This is why everyone else is now making deals with China, Canada, and all these others. I think if they don't want to lose that, then hopefully that'll mean peace for Taiwan and there won't be a giant conflict. And if that's the case, then yeah, it's smooth sailing for Chinese EVs, I think, in North America here in the 2020s, potentially, certainly by 2029. I appreciate the support there and the love. So I'm hoping actually that Chinese EVs could bring about some future peace, or, keep the peace. And that could be a nice little upside in addition to all the other, economic things. It's not just cars, but I think that but that's the big unknown. If China goes crazy next year, then forget about any kind of Chinese products. I mean, and if they go crazy on Taiwan, then that also, I mean, they make a huge amount of superconductor, chips and all the computerized stuff. I mean, if that whole thing unfolds, wait, first off, we have bigger problems to worry about than when Chinese EVs are coming, but also like, forget about the Chinese EVs, forget about, chips for any cars, because Taiwan makes a huge amount of those things. Forget about, technology for your consumer electronics. I mean, so much of that stuff comes from Taiwan. They've diversified some of that, but, you'd see if, the same kind of chip shortages we saw with COVID, it's going to be real bad if you have, Taiwan down and not able to produce stuff. And I think it's going to be also interesting too with the chip thing with this year with AI consuming so much of this RAM, and how that may actually lead to some RAM shortages for cars, and cars need so much RAM now. I think that could end up being a big problem that could lead us to some supply shortages already. So we'll see how that plays out. But that's why there's a lot of nuance to that question, a lot of things weighing into that. But as far as revisions or changes maybe to those Chinese cars, the only things is, you can't have, according to current laws, at least here in America, you couldn't have Chinese software on it because they're worried about spyware or whatever. So, it would have to be unique software compared to what you get on the Chinese cars from the factory there. So different software. There's one or two other things. I mean, in China now they've just ruled that 2027 you have to have physical door handles. Maybe they could get away with not doing physical door handles for US versions if we're lagging behind with our laws on that stuff. So that could be another thing, but I think there's probably not going to be too many other changes, honestly. They would just probably focus on bringing over the ones that would be most successful in America. So that means the bigger stuff, the more high range stuff, less of the city car stuff probably, which means they won't be quite as cheap as, some people are thinking they'll be, but they'll still certainly be a better value than, a lot of the competitors. And thank you so much again for the very generous super chat there, Jordan. And Chad, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, why not cars dropping horsepower? Sorry, I'm trying to decipher. So why not care less? You must just had a couple of typos there. But maybe why not have more EcoBoost models and other Fords? I mean, I think most of them do have some type of an EcoBoost pretty much at this point, aside from the hybrid stuff. So I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding your question. Let me know. Just do another, non-super chat, just follow up. I'll definitely try and, answer your question there once I can figure out what it is you're asking. But sorry, just not understanding that one there. But okay, we got about 6 minutes left. So I think at this point, let me see how far behind I am. Yeah, we're gonna go to just member questions here and try and get through those here before we gotta end here for the night. But let me see. Lantern says the Ford Fiesta sedan is also a massive eyesore. Fiesta is a little weird to me. At least it was better proportions than the Mirage, though. And Nico's confused that we're here on a Saturday. Yeah, I'm not competing with the Super Bowl on Sunday, so that's why we're doing a Saturday one here. And let me see. And Nico says, nice Assassin's Creed shirt. Is this Assassin's Creed-esque? I don't know. I played the first game and I loved it, but I never have played the other one since. But yeah, the little hooded thing going on there. And thanks for stopping by, Nico. And let me see. Chad says, let me see. About disregard the owner. Tesla is an American story. Startup got going with manufacturing, ended up as an investment in infrastructure. Yeah, if you disregard, the owner there for sure. It is absolutely, there's a lot to thank Tesla for. It's a shame the way they've gone because I think they could have had a really good legacy. And Luke says, I like the simplicity and the engine and transmission, but I love tech interiors. Yeah, I do appreciate having modern conveniences for sure. It's something to be hard to go back to with, classics and stuff. And Theodore says, why are these cars so expensive? Then the manufacturers are wondering why people are not buying cars. What is the real reason? Yeah, I mean, cars have just gotten, so expensive. There's just a lot of stuff. I think this is why Slate's going to be a fun experiment, because I think Slate kind of defies those expectations of like, well, what if you don't need a screen? What if you don't need power windows? What if you can actually have a bare bones car? But so many consumers just expect so much stuff. And a lot of the stuff is safety minded too. You have the automatic emergency braking and all those, cameras are thousands of dollars, and that all gets bundled into the price and makes things expensive. So there's certainly some of that at play for sure too. But it's just, things are more expensive. And as far as like, it's just the materials are more expensive. The labor is more expensive. The costs are higher. And they still need to keep their profits and keep shareholders happy. There's certainly a component of greed. I think, you could lower the price of everything if you're okay accepting smaller profits. And, it's just those top tier, 1%ers that just don't want to accept that. I mean, things could be improved if, they were willing to take, get a little less rich off of all this stuff. But I mean, there are some things where it's just, they don't have much of a profit margin on them. And, you got to charge what you got to charge when it comes to some of these, like sports cars, like the GR86 BRZ. I don't think anyone's getting rich off of those. It's just that, inflation and things just costing more, drives up the price of that stuff sometimes. Let me see. Also, I see Dana says he got accepted in a community college this week. Congrats on that. And Lantern Tail says Henry Ford would not be happy that Ford is pushing the prices of their cars too high. He made the Model T so that the car would be affordable for the people who built them, or any normal person who wanted an affordable car. Yeah. But I also think like the car market is different these days. There really wasn't much of a used car market back then. Yeah, I mean, there was, but it wasn't quite to the scale that it is today. And, you flip cars just didn't last very long. I think with cars lasting so long now, that's a consideration, as well. I mean, I think there's other things that kind of complicate that. I don't think it's quite that black and white of just like car prices are high, that equals he would be mad about it. But yeah, I think, like the Model T, it was just, for the time, it was the right car. It got people mobility. It, it did what it needed to do, but that was a bigger concern than these days, where, you need to make sure that things are safe, because everyone is rolling around in giant, huge vehicles and stuff. You can get away with less safety in a Model T because everyone else was in a Model T, and then you can only be so bad of an accident. Back those types of things. I think there's just so many complicated components that just it's hard to kind of judge those kinds of things from a black and white kind of perspective, in my opinion. But let me see. Vishal says, my aunt who works for Toyota got her new Grand Highlander Platinum last week. Nice. She's loving it. Huge upgrade from the 2016 Chrysler Town & Country she had before. She got Storm Cloud Blue with the tan interior. Very nice combo. Congrats to her. And let me see. Brandon, I'm happy to help you out. Yeah, Camry, test drive a Camry. I mean, maybe the softer suspension versions of the Camry are better, but I always get thrown in the XSE versions, and those just have the sportier suspension. It's just not super comfy. So maybe try an XLE, see if that's any better for you. Let me see. Chad says diversity in manufacturing causes expenses. If the manufacturer is streamlined, it costs less, but they want to charge more for the top badge. Right. And I think the diversity is important for cars too, because I think, if it is the same, like a lot of people see through that badge engineering stuff, and they see through the cost cutting and the corner cutting and stuff. So I think that's another risk with Toyota, is if they're going to go that route of, hey, let's just share everything, streamline everything, things get less special. Lexuses get less special. That's a slippery slope. I think, you got to be careful with how they dance through that. So hopefully they still have enough diversity, but, maybe just, trim a little bit off the top there as far as the cost. Lantern Tail says he hated that the Top Gear reboots didn't try something different, as some of the choices, like having Chris Evans act like Clarkson, was extremely cringe. Yeah. And that was also just, they were just like any of this stuff, all the movie industry, half the time it's, let's just make another sequel because that's safe. They're always trying to play things safe, and that safe approach just kills any of the fun and any of the creativity. Oftentimes they could lead to more greatness, and Hyper Shadow says, live random update. My friend is 5 minutes away on his way back from Orlando and just bought a slightly used Dodge Hornet GT for 17 grand. Wow. I don't hate the Hornet. For that price, nearly new, I'd take one. I didn't realize. Wow. Maybe that's an outlier, or maybe it isn't. But if that's what they're all going for these days, holy crap, is that a good deal? Wow. Good on him for getting a fantastic deal on that. Yeah. I mean, make sure he's got a warranty, still. I mean, he's got the factory warranty currently, but if he's going to buy it or keep it a long time, get an extended warranty, because, I've heard that the plug-in hybrid component can be a little bit problematic. But for 17 grand, yeah, you can't argue with that. That is fantastic. Thanks for letting me know about that. That's awesome. And I hope it works out well for him. Let me see. That one other guy says, in this crazy pricing era, consider how awesome it is that the 2026 Miata with destination is still under 32, and getting invoice pricing is easy as asking. I will buy a next gen Miata on release. Yeah, it's great that they've kept it that cheap for sure. Lorenzo says, I work at a dealership, and of the few cars that met my consumer's budget and criteria was a 16 Kia Sorento with the 2.4 GDI, 99,000 miles. We got her an extended warranty. Should I have cause for concern? I mean, with the extended warranty, no. And I mean, I think that, it all comes down to maintenance for these things, especially for the Kias and the Hyundais, where a lot of times people skimp on that stuff. And that's what leads to some of the, unreliability that people sometimes see and complain about. If that car had good maintenance records and was, well cared for, no, I think you got no problem. There's actually someone on here who was in the live. It was a little while back, I don't know, a couple of months ago, who their mom, I think, has like a Sorento with like 320,000 miles on it or something crazy. They absolutely, if you take care of them, I think they can probably go the distance. So with the extended warranty and them doing, some good maintenance, hopefully, and I think, yeah, you shouldn't have to worry too much. And Chad says, I don't know how this would work, but I've been burned and actually got a few people out of situations with bad mechanics. Is there a site to post good or bad, or just Google? I think mostly it's just, Googling stuff and seeing the reviews on there. There's also like various other like community, posts and things like that you can do on, Facebook groups and forums and things like that to, kind of weigh in on that kind of stuff, I think. But good on you for helping to get some people out of those bad situations. And let me see. Vishal says it was 72 degrees here in DFW today. I'll take that any day over the cold, considering we were below freezing just a couple of weeks ago. I bet. Man, well, glad you're enjoying the warmth there. Yeah, that's awesome. And let me see. See, Vishal says Matt's getting sleepy. Time to chant GR Corolla and wake him up. Absolutely. GR Corolla. That's the way to go. Let me see. Nico says Trump will have not so tasty Chinese food and will lash out at BYD. Yeah, probably. Sounds about right. And let me see. All right. The other guy says hopefully 2.3 Maverick happens one day. That would be awesome. I hope so. And Chad says, why not carelessly drop the EcoBoost like they do at Dodge? Gotcha. Okay, so you mean like why not leave that motor and do something different maybe? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what Ford's plan is for powertrains going forward, honestly. I'm guessing just more hybrids. You'll probably see just more of that same hybrid you see in the Maverick. It's kind of spreading out to more stuff, maybe. I don't know. And some of these smaller things, maybe. Lantern Tales, thank you for the reminder there. And let me see. Notorious, thank you so much for super chat. He says 2 hours, was gonna super chat before. Thought you were done. So I wrap it up here. Yeah, just had to make sure I do all the member questions here before we head out. But let me see. So we just talked about the Chinese EV thing. If you missed that, Typhoon, you can scroll back a few minutes, hopefully, and get that answer there. But I think so. That other guy says I think he means EcoBoost, all the things. Gotcha. So if you mean put the 2.3 in every car. Some cars it probably won't fit. And others just already have more power anyway. If you look at all the stuff that Ford has currently, there's, what are this on the low end? I mean, aside from Maverick, that's the only one that doesn't have the 2.3 or higher. Because what else? Escape's done now. So there's no use talking about that. It's Maverick, and then what's the next step up? Ranger. Ranger has the 2.3, right? I believe it does, and then Explorer has the 2.3, I think, as well, right? And then it's just the other trucks, the F-150, which does, I think 2.7 is the lowest one, right? And then everything else is just bigger, unless there's something I'm forgetting, but I think that's everything, right? So I guess Bronco Sport could do the 2.3. I think the 2.0 though is enough in that. So that's, you're not going to really gain much power. I mean, you can gain a little bit. But I think there's just not a whole lot of stuff to put it in, honestly, that hasn't been already, filled with that. But anyway, Typhoon, you must have just joined in, Typhoon. Sorry, like literally 5 minutes ago we talked about the Chinese car thing. So you can, if you can't scroll back now, this will become a video on demand, like a regular, YouTube upload in the next few hours once that processes, and then you can go back and watch that part for sure. Let me see. That other guy is also wondering why the 2.7 and 3 liter EcoStang never happened. Probably for the same reason that everyone's complaining about Charger with a 6-cylinder. Clearly, people aren't into it, and I think Ford was smart to avoid that, honestly. Because I mean, it would have made sense to maybe try it out 5 or 10 years ago, but now these days, definitely not. I think it's good they stayed away and stuck with what people wanted. And that other guy says, the Ranger has the 2.7 too. It's rad. Okay, yeah. 2.7 is great. It is a really good motor. All right, yeah. And I see the other guy saying thanks for the stream, and Michelle as well. And says enjoy the Super Bowl tomorrow to those who are watching. Yeah. And thank you all so much. I see Nightbreakers saying goodnight here as well. So thank you all so much for joining in here on the live. Hope you had a good time here. And I'll see you guys now next Sunday for the next live here. Have a great rest of your weekend, a great week. Thanks for hanging out on a Saturday night with me here. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.